Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Mark Marex, Product Development Specialist with Nasdaq Index Research, to discuss PHLX Semiconductor Sector Index, better known as the SOX, performance and composition. Mark, it's great to see you. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Great to be back, Jill.
All right, Mark, let's take a look at SOX composition to see where the index is weighted.
Yeah, sure. I thought this would be a fun one to talk about today. We actually highlighted it on our recent webinar with ETF Trends, talking about thematic tech in the 21st century. And, you know, we've kind of come around to thinking of this index recently as like the granddaddy of thematic tech indexes. It's been around since 1993, if you can believe it. And, you know, most people probably don't think of it as thematic because it's so narrowly based on just subsector classifications within semiconductors. But wanted to highlight for folks just some of the changes in this index recently and why it is really quite relevant to multiple areas of thematic tech, everything from healthcare and automotive to cybersecurity and more traditional industrial uses. So if we look at, you know, the index as of the end of August, you know, top 15 out of about 30 components, we got an 80-20 split. Biggest components in the index were NVIDIA, Qualcomm, Texas Instruments, Broadcom, AMD, rounding out the top 5. Intel actually number 6, which might surprise folks, right? Because Intel's, you know, pretty much the pioneer in this space, came out with the first, what we would consider, you know, commercial semiconductor CPU unit back in like 1970, and is actually still the biggest semiconductor firm by revenue globally. But given the developments in the last few years, especially with the emergence of NVIDIA taking its strengths in graphics and graphics processing and reapplying that to areas like automotive technologies around driver assistance and infotainment. You know, cars have an incredible number of chips in them these days where they didn't used to 5 or 10 years ago. NVIDIA has all of a sudden become the most important, probably the single most important company in this space, and all the more timely given their announced acquisition of a UK firm called ARM a little over a week ago. They are clearly, you know, becoming the biggest, the boldest player in this space.
Where are the standouts for individual price performance?
So yeah, I mean, looking at year to date, this is through end of August again. So, you know, probably a little bit different if you looked at it as of today, given things in tech have cooled off a bit. But I mean, again, NVIDIA is the standout with year to date performance up more than 100%. Last year was not too shabby either, up 76%. And then you've got AMD, which is probably, you know, if not the second most, then about to be the second most important firm. Also ranked, you know, 1 or 2 in multiple categories of semiconductor products, whether it's, you know, microprocessors or graphics units. And AMD has almost doubled this year after more than doubling last year, and it's just been on an incredible streak for a few years in terms of performance. You can see, you know, there's quite a few other firms in here as well that had absolutely blowout years in 2019. 2020, more of a mixed bag, but still, you know, considering you've got 15 names here, only 4 of them are negative, only 2 of them are, you know, more than 1% down for the year. Pretty extraordinary, you know, considering what's been happening in the broader market year to date.
How did the SOX perform relative to other indexes?
So yeah, I mean, this is you know, it's a modified market cap weighted index, kind of similar to some of the other big indexes we have at Nasdaq. 8 and 4 capping, top 5 constituents are capped at 8%, the rest at 4%. Wanted to show this 3-year view because you know, looking at year to date, SOX hasn't done quite as well as the Nasdaq 100. You know, a big reason for that is just that a lot of the biggest names in the Nasdaq 100, your Amazons, your Apples, your Microsofts, those are not semiconductor firms, even though with their, you know, massively growing cloud businesses, they are huge sources of demand for semiconductors, both from a processing perspective and from a memory perspective. And so if you look at it on a bit of a longer time horizon, I mean, pretty much right in lockstep with the Nasdaq 100. Both indexes are up over 100% over the last 3 years. Certainly very impressive, even compared to the Nasdaq Composite, which is much broader, and then compared to the S&P 500, about 2.5 times the return on a relative basis.
All right, Mark, and how can investors participate in the SOX through an ETF?
So there's a few products tracking. There's a couple smaller ETFs out of Direction, which are the leveraged bull and leveraged bear 3 times return ETFs. Those have a couple $1 million in AUM across them, as well as a product in Asia listed in Taiwan from Cathay. But the real big player here is, of course, the iShares Semiconductor ETF. It's got close to $5 billion in AUM, at least as of the end of August. As a group, this group of ETFs has just really, really done well since March, since that temporary low in AUM of about 2.4 billion, up more than double. Some of that is performance, but a lot of that is also very, very healthy flows. And I think people are really starting to put together that even though this space has been around for a very long time, the fact that there's so much innovation happening around it that's directly related to cloud, directly related to artificial intelligence, and machine learning, and sort of these advanced kind of custom needs for computer processing abilities, it's starting to filter out into all different areas of thematic tech, like cyber, like cloud, like biotech as well. So it's a very, very exciting space to be following, and we were, just very excited to be highlighting it these past few weeks.
All right, Mark, great to see you. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks.
Great seeing you too, Jill. See you next time.
And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.